this should, like, the generous machine that you build, the community mobilizing machine to bring clean water to everybody on earth should be bigger than Walmart's. And I wasn't thinking that big.
Yeah,
and we're not
true.
there yet, but
no, but well on the way to being.
What? Tell me what you remember.
My recollection was multiple people said that I had to meet you. And either I saw you or somebody saw you sitting up on the deck one evening. And so I came and sat down at your table. And I remember you being completely either unimpressed or you've like given this speech about charity water 400 times that day. And the last thing you wanted to do was do it again. And like I said, so can you tell me a little bit about what's going on? Because you were still in the, like, not everybody knew who you were yet. And I remember you just sort of like phoned it in. You're like, well, we're doing this and this, and you were so used to being loved and adored with that pitch, and I remember that's when I remember it. Now I remember going, that's it, like, yeah, and then you perked up, and then all of a sudden we were both engaged with each other.
Then we had a different conversation.
Yeah, and then and the best part is a lifelong friendship emerged.
Yeah, you know, so many people listening, I'm sure.
By the way, it challenged the whole thing of first impressions.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so many people are familiar with your work around why, and your book Start With Why. I remember a session we did together many, many years ago when you came into Charity Water and helped us realize our why was not delivering people clean water. That was kind of the mission. That was the thing that we were doing. It was actually much bigger. It was... you know, some people kind of talk about that as the difference between vision and mission. But I remember you said you're helping people see. It's seeing people see their impact. And, you know, we've talked for years about trying to reinvent charity or reimagine charity. Charity means love. It's a beautiful word. It's charitas in the Latin. It means to help your neighbor in need and get nothing in return. It's kind of the highest level of unselfishness and giving. And you know, we've always believed that word has become tainted over time. Many people have lost trust in charities. 42% of Americans polled said they don't believe charities are trustworthy. More recently, 70% of Americans polled believe charities wasted their money or didn't do the right thing with money. So we've kind of been on this 13-year crusade now to restore people's lost faith in giving. And then the mission is, when we do that, when we build this community, when we add up all that generosity, let's go do the most practical thing we can think of, which is provide people with the most basic need for life, for water.
And by the way, your organization is called Charity Water, not Water Charity.
Right. And at the beginning, it was just charity, which was kind of this core. Could we reinvent charity? And the idea was, after the colon, we might be able to do education or malaria or health.
Correct.
And I think
this is why you're more like a company like Apple and not like a company like Dell, which is because Dell defined itself by its product. It can only make that product, but because Apple defined itself by its cause, it can make phones and computers and you know, televisions and, you know, the whole thing. It can go in many different directions. iTunes, you know. So you have that flexibility because you have a broader definition. Almost every other charity on the planet is defined by what they do. Yeah. And then they don't play nicely with each other either.
One of the things I remember you also helped us with was just kind of putting the language around hope and opportunity versus shame and guilt. You know, so many charities are, you know, showing the kid with flies and slow motion locking eyes and saying, feel really bad now, give. And that's not what the great brands do. That's not what Nike does, right? Nike doesn't tell people that they're fat and lazy. Hey, you know, go outside, buy our sneakers, go for a run. Nike has been telling stories of people overcoming adversity, of achieving the impossible. This belief that greatness is within you.
Have you ever heard the story that Phil Knight used to tell when he would describe Nike? Have you ever heard the story?
No, tell me.
Oh, it's great. So he was at some large conference, you know, as CEOs go to, and he was invited to talk about Nike. And you and I have been to lots of these, and CEOs stand up and they talk about, you know, what their annual revenues are and what their growth rates are, and, you know, what their projections are. And that's how they describe their companies. You know, we're the best at this, we're the best at that. Phil Knight stood up and he said, if you've ever gone for a run for exercise, can you please stand up? And most of the room stands up. You know, he says, if you go at least once a week, can you keep standing? And everybody else, please sit down. Now, you know, most of the room sits down. He says, if you go on a regular basis, like say 2 or 3 times a week, please keep standing. Everybody else sit down. A few more sit down. He goes, if you go out, no matter what the weather is, no matter whether it's rain or shine, you still go out for a run, please keep standing. Now there's a smattering of people, right? He says, when you're out there, when it's cold and wet, and you're the only one out on the street, we're the ones standing under the lamppost cheering you on.
That's a beautiful picture.
And that's what just do it means.
Yeah.
Just do it is not for the ones who win. It's for the ones who try. It's for the ones who do. Just do it is the ones who get out there. It doesn't matter if you're an elite athlete or a first time exercising. Nike is the one that's standing next to you, cheering you on. And that's what their brand has always stood for. And Phil Knight would tell this metaphor, tell this story that so perfectly captured who they are and what they stand for. That's how Nike now has permission to make high fashion. Yep. I mean, they make stuff that has nothing to do with exercise or sports now.
Yep.
It's high fashion. You can't buy high fashion from, you know, pick another sneaker brand, you know?
Yeah.
I find that amazing.
You know, I know the why work was kind of your seminal work. It was many years ago. Anybody who's just crushing it lately, like who you know, in the last couple of years, who you just think is really getting it right?
I mean, I think Brene Brown's work is remarkable. And to her credit, she's taken this icky, ooey, gooey subject of vulnerability, and she's opened up a door for all of us to have a conversation about it out loud, as opposed to privately with our therapists, you know, or not at all, which is even worse. So I think Brene Brown's works is you know, has to be thought of. And I know her and my work, you know, her name is brought up. The people who like my work bring up her name most often, and she tells me that the people who like her work bring up my work, because it's so interesting, because our work is complementary, but it's definitely different.
Yeah. And we're lucky enough to have both of you come and speak to our teams for free.
There you go.
When you're in New York, which
Big love.
Which feels like an honor to have you in front of 100 people. That's been so valuable for us over time. Talk a little bit about, you have a lot of people, including myself and members of our team, who are really just trying to find the way to stay optimistic. And, you know, you are a very optimistic person. I saw somebody just type in the notes, you know, thanks for the positivity. That's great. I mean, I think the glass is always half full with you. You're the kind of guy that, you know,
it's completely full. It's not half full. It's completely full.
It's completely full. Yeah.
It's half filled with milk and half filled with air. It's totally full.
There you go. Say just a moment about staying optimistic. As we know, we've got all sorts of people going through terrible loss, going through health issues, going through, you know, financial calamity. What's your advice for people?
There's 2 things that I do that help me. Number one, my grandmother lived through the Blitz, and I remember that. I think of that. You know, the Germans bombed London for 11 weeks straight, and you weren't safe anywhere. And 60% of all homes were completely destroyed. When we're at home, if we obey the rules of social distancing and sheltering at home, we're fine. Like if we're at home, we're fine.
Yep.
So I think of my grandmother, that you weren't fine anywhere. And people, think about this. During the Blitz and during the war, people sent their children to live with strangers in the country for fear that they would get killed. So they figured if somebody has to survive, better the children should survive.
Sure.
And so lots and lots and lots of kids were raised by foster families and lost their parents. Can you imagine sending your children away for their own safety and never seeing them again? I mean, people did that.
Yeah. Because
it was the way to keep the country alive, for not risking the lives of children during the war. And I think of my grandmother living through the Blitz, and she would tell us stories about living through the Blitz. And I'm thinking to myself, like, if I compare what we have to what they had, all the tragedy we have still pales in comparison to that. So the thinking is, it's not making a comparison, but rather if they can get through that, we can get through this.
Right.
That's what keeps me positive. If they can get through that, we can get through this, right? So that's number one. And the other thing is, optimism is not the denial of reality. I'm not living in a cloud, right? Optimism is focusing on where we're going to get to. So we are in a dark tunnel filled with pain and angst. There are a lot of problems. I don't even think, like, the real problems haven't even begun. Like the mental health issues that our frontline healthcare workers are going to suffer after this is done, and that many people who are living alone, like, we consider solitary confinement a form of torture. You can't, to take people away from people, you know, online is a big deal. And I think phone is really important. Hearing someone's tone of voice, like text less, call more, you know? Just Hamilton broke into my mind, you know, talk less, smile more, you know? But text less, talk more, like, is really, really important right now. And I think that we have to start preparing for the problems that are gonna happen. And how we stop those. But the point is I don't deny the fact that we're in a dark tunnel, but what I see is the light at the end. I don't know how far away it is, but I see that little bright dot, and that's where I focus my attention.
Yes, that's great. That's great stuff. Yeah, I think too, one thing that's just been working for me is just trying to express gratitude out loud, especially with, you know, with my kids, and just because I wake up cranky, not enough sleep. I had 2 kids climb into the bed last night and like pushing me off, and, you know, terrible night's sleep. And you kind of wake up and the days run together. Like, is it a Friday? Is that any different than a Saturday or a Sunday or a Monday? And just practicing gratitude. What are the list of things? And sometimes we'll just sit around on the couch and we'll try to get to 50, you know, and I don't know, the kids will be thankful for a bird or a, you know, Legos, or thankful for the TV that they get to watch, or chocolate chip cookies, or, you know, but it changes you. You know, you list out 20, 30, 50 things. Yeah. You're transformed through that process, just through that kind of mind exercise. And
we're doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing. And I find that my gratitude nearly every night is I'm grateful for my family. Yes. You know, like I find myself saying the same thing over and over again, you know? I'm overwhelmed by that. Yep. You know, I just thought of an exercise that anyone can do. You know, the problem is we can get in these spirals of thinking about all the bad things, and it can eat at us. And so a great little exercise to do is take a piece of paper and write down 20 good things that are happening or will come out of this. Yeah. 20, you know? Reconnecting with people I haven't seen in a while, learning to be grateful, learning to say I love you, appreciating the importance of human relationships, redefining what a success means in America. You know, we over-indexed on productivity. We thought that if you're productive, you're doing well. Yes. And now we have sort of this 1950s lifestyle now where we have family dinner every night and like all of this, and redefining that joy and success and happiness doesn't hinge on our productivity. That it's broader than that. And I think these are very, very positive things that are happening and will remain beyond, I hope. Yeah. I found just the slowing down, and it doesn't sound like you've slowed down much, but you know, certainly from travel and rushing back and forth to JFK, and I don't know, 70 or 80 flights a year, and, you know, late for a gate changes, right? There's just kind of there's a hurry there's a hurry in so much of my life. Yeah. And just cooking cooking meals, right? Using my hands. Yeah. I don't really use my hands for anything, but I know. Was cutting something the other day, and, you know, we've got a little bit of property here on this farmhouse, and I bought a machete for $10 the other day, and I just started hacking thorns. I bought a bird feeder. Yes, I did that too. I'm right now while I'm talking to you, looking at the birds eating. I'm loving it. I think I'm getting old. Oh my God, I did the same watching thing. Birds. This is what my life has become. So fun. But yeah, I don't want to go back to some of those, you know, some of those unhealthy habits of hurry. You know, I was talking with a
a group of kind of, I've got a little CEO group of guys that I spend time with. And one of the observations is we are all probably going to have this instinct to make up for lost time. And we should actually resist that, right? This kind of this flurry of activity. Okay, well, we missed all these speeches. So should we get on more stages? Should we do more? But that's kind of the this fear of missing out. And I think there's a real health in saying we are not going to make up for lost time. If this is a month or 3 months or 6 months or a year, however long this lost time is, and we're actually going to embrace the healthiest of our new rhythms, having meals together as a family, cooking more, walking in the woods, not sleeping with our phones, which it's a great time to try that. You get to kind of try all these different things because you're establishing a new normal.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things, because I know my instinct is going to be, okay, wow, well, I had 12 speeches canceled. Let me go figure out how to make up for the audiences of the donations that we weren't able to get.
Right.
And I think that would be unhealthy.
It's part of the journey, this will change us. Like if you think about our grandparents who lived through the Great Depression of the Second World War, they became really frugal and miserly. Like they saved every empty glass bottle and reused every piece of tinfoil. Yeah. This is going to change. You and I are too old, but kids now who are, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, like they were on one path and now they're on a different path, I'm very curious what will happen to this young generation, what kind of adults they're going to be because of this. It'll be fascinating. It's going to be really interesting, but it'll definitely have an impact.
Yeah. We can do just a few more minutes. I know you've got to run. You're talking to a lot of people here who are supporters of charity water. What kind of drew you to the issue? I mean, there's a million things that you can give to as you kind of, maybe just a little bit of how certainly now there's so many needs in our local community, right?
Yeah.
And I think that'll be one of the challenges for organizations like ours. I mean, we are serving the 10% of the planet without access to clean water. Clean water is needed now more than ever. It is literally the front line against, the defense of the virus, as we wash our hands every day, as we practice good hygiene, and yet 785 million people, a tenth of the world, doesn't have access. They can't wash their hands.
Yeah.
1 out of 3 health clinics, forget about ventilators, 1 out of 3 health clinics in the world don't have clean water. That said, you could do the same kind of riff on hunger or a justice issue or malaria or healthcare. Maybe just what you find, compelling about water, and then maybe how you think about just being a global citizen. How do we think about our giving locally and then giving globally, and how it's all connected?
Yeah. So, it goes back to the conversation when we first started, which is, for me, the appeal of charity water is the charity, not the water. Like I love that you are positive in your asks. I love that you make people feel good. I love that you let people see the impact that they can physically and personally make in the world. That, so many charities